when justice doesn't come from man, but from God. There was a time when you were the one being trampled. You were slandered, ridiculed, pushed down, and quietly sabotaged by those who wore masks of kindness while hiding knives of jealousy. They didn't just misunderstand you, they intentionally tried to derail your path, distort your character, and suffocate your God-given purpose. You weren't just rejected, you were targeted. And yet, God never turned away. He didn't close his eyes. He didn't overlook the schemes. No, he watched, he recorded, and he waited for the appointed time to act. Now, that time has come, and those who once sought to shame you are the ones now walking in shame. The ones who tried to silence you are now being silenced. The same narcissistic spirit that tried to bury your future is now gasping under the weight of its own deception. They are, as the saying goes, eating crow, choking on the pride they once flaunted, while the truth they tried to hide rises up to confront them. This is not about revenge. This is not about you getting even. This is about a holy and righteous God stepping in when no one else would, and doing what only He can do: deliver justice with divine precision. Because when God acts, no lie can stand, no enemy can run, and no weapon formed against you can remain. 1. God exposes their lies and restores your name. There is a particular type of anguish that cuts deeper than betrayal. It's the quiet, suffocating pain of being misunderstood, not by strangers, but by those who once knew your heart. You didn't just lose relationships, you lost the version of yourself that believed loyalty was enough to protect you. You trusted them. You believed that being good, kind, honest, and faithful would shield you from harm. But the narcissist didn't come to be your friend. They came to study you, imitate you, infiltrate your life, and then, when the moment suited them, turn others against you with a smile on their face and blood on their tongue. They didn't need to shout or scream. No, they only needed to whisper a few carefully chosen words wrapped in false concern. I just don't think they're being honest. I'm worried about their behavior lately. Something seems off with them. Just enough doubt to make others pause, and that pause is where the destruction began. Suddenly, you noticed people shifting around you. Their tone changed. Their eyes weren't as warm. Their support became silent. The people who once embraced you began to retreat, not because of something you did, but because of what they were told. And you sat in confusion. You replayed every interaction. You prayed. You cried. You asked God if you had failed somehow. You begged Him to reveal what was happening. You started to doubt your own spirit, your discernment, your worth. It was more than a betrayal of trust. It was an assault on your identity. And the hardest part? You didn't fight back. You didn't retaliate. You stayed silent. Not because you were weak, but because you chose to let God be your defender. And now He is. Because the God you serve is not blind. He saw the late-night calls behind your back. He heard the lies passed like poison between people. He watched as your name was dragged through the dirt while your hands remained clean. And though He allowed it for a season, He only allowed it long enough to reveal the truth with power. Not just for you, but for everyone who doubted you. God doesn't just uncover lies, He dismantles them. Slowly, meticulously, undeniably. The web they wove starts unraveling. Their stories contradict, their charm fades, their manipulation no longer works. And the same people who once leaned in to hear them speak begin pulling back, sensing something isn't right. Because you can only hold a lie for so long before it starts to rot in your hands. That's when the tables begin to turn. People who once avoided you start remembering your consistency. They remember your grace. They begin to ask questions. Why did I stop talking to them again? Was that even true? Why did I believe that person so quickly? And while they're questioning, God is restoring. Not in secret, not quietly, but publicly, visibly, in ways that no one can deny. You're no longer the subject of gossip. You're the example of endurance. Your silence becomes a testimony. Your stability under pressure becomes proof. And your unwavering spirit becomes undeniable evidence that God was with you the entire time. You see, when God restores your name, He doesn't do it to make you popular. He does it to make a point, to show that He honors the faithful, that He stands behind those who are falsely accused, that He does not allow His children to be mocked without consequence. And here's the part that shakes the very ground the narcissist walks on. You never had to fight for your name, because heaven fought for you. While they schemed in shadows, heaven was preparing a spotlight. While they planted seeds of ruin, God was preparing your resurrection. You were never forgotten. You were never alone. And your name? It's not just being restored, it's being elevated. And as that happens, the narcissist is forced to watch, silently, powerlessly, with nothing to say and nowhere to hide. They are being exposed, not just in front of others, but in front of themselves. And that's the worst kind of exposure, when someone finally sees that their own heart was the true enemy all along. You don't need revenge. You don't need validation. Because what you carry now is far more powerful than their lies. You carry vindication from the throne room of heaven. Your peace is unshaken, your integrity intact, and your future no longer at the mercy of those who once tried to destroy you. So lift your head, walk forward, and never look back, because the same people who tried to bury you are now being buried under the weight of their own deception. Their lies are ashes, and your name is rising from them, refined, restored, and radiant with God's approval. 2. God opens doors they tried to close. It's a painful thing to realize that not everyone who smiled in your face was rooting for your success. Some people, even those you once prayed for, laughed with, and served beside, were secretly hoping you'd never rise above the level where they could still feel superior to you. And when they saw God moving in your life, when they saw your gifts, your faith, your potential, they didn't celebrate you. They got scared. Not scared of you, but scared of what your elevation would expose in them. So they did what small-spirited people do. They tried to close the doors God had ordained for you. Maybe they lied to your supervisor to keep you from getting that promotion. Maybe they intentionally left your name off a list, denied you credit, or made sure the right people didn't see your value. Maybe they warned others not to trust you, or planted subtle doubt in places where you had no chance to defend yourself. These were not random acts of malice. These were calculated attempts to block your blessing. And it worked. For a while, you felt stuck, forgotten, unseen. You watched others soar ahead while you remained still, confused and heartbroken. You did everything right. You showed up early, you served with excellence, you obeyed God, and still the door didn't open. Not because you lacked faith, but because someone else was working behind the scenes to shut it before you could walk through. But what they forgot, what they could never understand, is that no human being has the authority to lock what God has already spoken open. When God declares a door is yours, it doesn't matter how many people stand in front of it, trying to jam it shut. Their resistance only delays the inevitable. Because in His timing, God doesn't just open doors, He makes a spectacle of it. He opens them wide, publicly, without apology. And when He does, it becomes painfully obvious to everyone that it was never man's decision to begin with. It was divinely appointed. That opportunity you thought was lost forever, suddenly it's on the table again, but now with better terms. That platform they tried to deny you, now it's being offered to you, without you even asking. That voice they tried to silence, now it's being sought out, honored, and broadcast. And what's more, those who tried to shut the door, now they have to watch it swing open, and they can't walk through with you. It's not just favor, it's separation. Because when God blesses you in the presence of those who once tried to curse you, it's a clear message from heaven. This one belongs to me, and no scheme of man will stand against what I've ordained. And here's what's even more powerful. The doors God opens in this season won't just benefit you, they will bless others. Your open door will become someone else's answered prayer. Your promotion will make room for the people you'll hire, mentor, lead, and inspire. Your voice will encourage someone else to keep going. Your visibility will give others permission to believe that God can still raise up the overlooked. What they tried to shut down in you, God is using to spark revival in others. That's how He works. He doesn't just vindicate you, He multiplies the impact of your breakthrough. And yes, some of them will come knocking, once they see the success, once they realize the room you're standing in is filled with light and favor and influence they never expected. They'll want access, they'll want connection. They'll act like they never blocked you. But God already made the distinction. This door, it wasn't built for them. It was opened by His hand for you, and you alone. So walk through it boldly. Don't hesitate. Don't apologize for the way God is lifting you. Don't feel guilty that they're left behind. They had a choice. They could have supported you, but instead they chose sabotage. And now you are walking in the fullness of what they tried to keep from you. And if you're still waiting for that door, still feeling like everything is shut and locked and cold, let me remind you of something. Delay is not denial. What God is about to open will be far better than what you cried over. He's not just preparing the opportunity, He's preparing you to be ready when it arrives. Don't lose heart. Keep standing. Keep trusting. The very ones who thought they buried you are about to see God resurrect something far greater, and this time, when the door opens, no one will be able to take the credit but God. If you've ever felt like people tried to shut you out of something God promised you, comment below with the words, "They tried, but God opened it anyway." Let that be your declaration today. 3. God torments their conscience while giving you peace. There is a silence that God allows to fall, not just on situations, but on the souls of those who have committed injustice. It's not always lightning and thunder that signals His movement. Sometimes it's the still, crushing weight of guilt that becomes His most powerful response. And for the narcissist, who once seemed so bold, so composed, so untouchable, that silence becomes unbearable. In the beginning, they walked with confidence. They believed they had won. They had distorted the truth, fractured relationships, and watched from a distance as your life unraveled. Or so they thought. They mistook your silence for weakness, your grace for ignorance, and your patience for permission. They celebrated when you were misunderstood. They found satisfaction in the confusion they created around you, and in their pride, they convinced themselves that there would be no consequences. But what they never expected was the aftermath. You see, God doesn't just strike physically. He moves through the weight of conviction. He begins to stir in the hidden places of a person's soul. The same mind that once plotted in the dark begins to echo with memories. The same lips that once told lies now speak less, because the guilt lodged in the throat is too heavy to swallow. Their days are filled with distraction, but their nights are filled with unrest. What they once dismissed as no big deal now haunts them in the quiet moments, when they lay awake long after midnight, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word, every decision, every manipulation. And what makes it worse? They see you. You, the one they tried to dismantle. You're still standing. In fact, you're not just standing. You're thriving. You're smiling without effort, glowing without their validation, moving forward with no bitterness in your voice. You've changed. Not because of what they did to you, but because of what God did for you after the damage. That contrast is unbearable for someone with a narcissistic heart, because in their world, power is everything, control is everything. They can't comprehend how someone they believed they broke is not only alive, but flourishing. It shatters their illusion. It steals their power. It forces them to look in the mirror and face something they've spent their entire lives avoiding, the truth about themselves. While you walk in peace, they walk in torment. While you enjoy clarity, they are clouded by regret. While you rest, they pace. You've moved on, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. You no longer carry the weight of what was done to you. You no longer rehearse the betrayal. You're not hoping for their downfall. You've simply surrendered it all to God. And He has answered, not with wrath, but with peace for you and restlessness for them. This is the paradox of divine justice. It's not always loud. It doesn't always come in the form of exposure or public disgrace. Sometimes the most severe form of judgment God allows is internal decay, the slow, daily unraveling of a person's soul under the pressure of knowing they can't undo what they did, and they can't reach what you now carry. That's the real torment, watching you live in a freedom they can never taste again. They may smile on the outside, they may even pretend as if they've moved on, but deep down they are unsettled. They are anxious. They are spiritually disoriented. Because no matter what they try to distract themselves with, they can't escape the echo of God's justice pressing against their conscience. And the beauty of this justice? You didn't have to orchestrate it. You didn't have to retaliate. You didn't have to wish evil on them. All you had to do was release them to God and wait. Now the same God who comforted you in your agony is confronting them in their arrogance. The same God who wrapped you in peace is allowing them to sit in the silence they created. He is reminding them, day by day, that their actions had consequences, and that the person they tried to destroy was never in their hands to begin with. You belong to God, and He has not only lifted you above the storm they sent, He has allowed them to sit in the shadow of your healing, fully aware that they no longer have access to you, nor the peace that surrounds you now. That's the kind of victory that no title, no position, no public apology can imitate. It's the quiet triumph of being seen, known, and protected by a just and holy God. 4. God allows them to try to come back so you can say no. There's a moment in the journey of healing when the tables finally turn, not because you forced them to, but because God's justice has a timing of its own. After the chaos settles, after the dust clears, after your heart has been slowly sewn back together in prayer and stillness, the narcissist often circles back, not because they've repented, not because they've changed, but because they've begun to realize something terrifying. They no longer have access to you. They come back wearing the same smile that once deceived you. They speak with the same tone of false humility. Their words are polished, their timing strategic, and their motives still self-serving. It's never truly about you. It's about what you now carry, your peace, your joy, your progress, your power. What they tried to silence has now become too loud to ignore, and their return isn't motivated by love, it's driven by loss of control, loss of relevance, loss of the version of you that still needed their approval. And here is where God's mercy reveals itself in a strange but sacred way. He allows the encounter. He allows them to reach out, not to reopen the wound, but to let you see how much you've healed. The same voice that once held power over your emotions now sounds hollow. The same eyes that once manipulated your compassion now seem dim. What once made you tremble with fear or ache with longing now barely touches the peace that surrounds you. This is not a test of anger, it's a confirmation of maturity. You've been rebuilt from the inside out. Your vision is clear, your heart has been sanctified. You no longer seek closure because you understand the deeper truth. Some doors were closed by God's own hand, not out of punishment, but out of protection. He didn't just pull you away from their abuse, He rescued you from the cycle, and now, when they try to return, He lets you stand at the threshold of that old pattern, not to re-enter, but to finally say what your wounded self could never say. No, not this time. It's not said in bitterness, it's not screamed in rage, it's whispered in authority. Because now you know who you are. You're no longer the desperate soul trying to explain yourself. You're no longer holding space for someone who never had the capacity to honor you. You are no longer shrinking to fit the box they built to contain your calling. You've outgrown their narrative, and God has made sure they can feel the distance. And they do. Oh, how they feel it. They sense your spiritual elevation, even if they don't understand it. They recognize the glow of someone who has been with God, someone who has wrestled with pain and come out holy, someone who no longer needs them to feel whole, seen, or secure. God's justice is not always punishment. Sometimes it's exclusion. Sometimes the greatest judgment He gives the narcissist is this: they cannot follow you where He is taking you. The space they once occupied is now filled with purpose. The role they once played in your life is now sealed off. They are left to wander the ruins of the story they thought they controlled, while you walk freely into the next chapter, written, directed, and approved by the hand of God alone. And here is the truth most of them will never admit. They thought you would wait for them. They assumed their absence would make you desperate. They believed your identity was still tied to their validation. But what they didn't calculate was the divine process that took place when you were broken. While they were gone, God was near. While they celebrated your silence, while they moved on as if nothing happened, the Spirit of God was breathing into the places they had left empty. So now when they return, they find a different person standing in your place. Someone wiser, calmer, stronger. Someone no longer emotionally entangled by their tactics. Someone who doesn't need closure, because the closure already happened when God closed the door and sealed it with peace. This is the holy reversal, not that they came back, but that you didn't. You didn't return to the pattern. You didn't fall for the apology. You didn't re-enter the cycle. Because this time, you finally understand, just because they want access doesn't mean they deserve it. Just because they lost something valuable doesn't mean you're responsible for returning it. And just because they regret doesn't mean they've repented. God's justice isn't always a fire from heaven. Sometimes it's a quiet moment at the crossroads, where the person who once shattered you stands face to face with the truth. You are no longer theirs to manipulate. And the greatest power you now hold? It's not the success they see from the outside. It's the peace they can no longer reach. 5. God turns their schemes against them. There comes a point in the divine timeline where God no longer allows the wickedness done against you to remain unchecked. It's not that He was unaware before. It's not that He didn't care. No, His silence was never absence. It was strategy. In His perfect justice, God often allows the enemy's schemes to play out just long enough for them to be exposed by their own design. And when that moment comes, the trap they set for you becomes the pit they fall into themselves. The narcissist thought they had control. They weaved lies with precision. They positioned themselves in places of influence. They rallied people to their side. Their plots were coldly calculated, not just to harm you, but to elevate themselves while stepping on your dignity. And for a season, it looked like they were winning. You felt the sting of isolation. You tasted the bitterness of being misrepresented. You lived in the confusion of spiritual warfare that felt unjust and unrelenting. But while they gloated, God recorded. While they schemed, God measured. And when His time came, He did what only He can do. He turned their own weapons back on them. This is not poetic justice. It's not karma. It's not random. It's divine. It's holy. It's the justice of a righteous God who says in His word that whatever a man sows, that shall he also reap. When the narcissist sowed seeds of deceit, they didn't realize they were planting a harvest in their own field. When they tried to block your opportunities, they didn't realize they were invoking heaven's authority to open doors you couldn't even see yet. When they threw dirt on your name, they didn't know they were preparing the very ground God would later use to elevate you. It's never immediate. That's the brilliance of how God moves. He allows the consequences to rise slowly, silently, until they can no longer be denied. Suddenly, the narcissist begins to lose what they once used against you. Their influence crumbles. Their words lose weight. The people who once listened to them begin to sense something is off. Relationships they manipulated start to fall apart. The narrative they constructed begins to fracture from within. And as they unravel, you begin to rise, not out of revenge, but through God's redemptive power. You begin to see how every attack led to your alignment. Every lie forced you deeper into prayer. Every rejection positioned you to receive better than what was lost. And that is the devastating irony for the narcissist. They became the unwilling tool that God used to refine you. What they meant for evil was not just neutralized, it was the very fire they lit became the heat that strengthened you. The betrayal that broke your heart became the beginning of your spiritual authority. You are not simply a survivor of their abuse. You are now living proof that God's justice is real and that He is not mocked. And what of them? The same mind that once plotted without conscience now turns inward. The same confidence that led them to manipulate others begins to feel fragile. They sense what's happening, even if they can't explain it. Their plans fall apart before they even begin. Their words no longer carry power. Their attempts to regain control feel hollow. They stand in the wreckage of their own design, and though they may never say it aloud, they know they are the reason for their downfall. They wanted you discredited. Now they are questioned. They wanted you invisible. Now you're walking in favor. They wanted to silence your voice. Now you're speaking with power and clarity. And what's most haunting for them is not the material loss. It's the spiritual realization that they no longer have access to your life, your peace, or your covering. God has built a wall they cannot cross. He has sealed the spaces they once slithered through. He has placed you beyond their reach, not in arrogance, but in mercy, not just for your protection, but as a testimony to what happens when someone touches His anointed. This is not about gloating. This is not about watching someone fall. This is about recognizing the holiness of God's justice. When He repays, it is complete. It is undeniable. It carries the weight of heaven. And it teaches not just the one who suffered, but the one who inflicted suffering. Because what was once done in the darkness now serves as a platform for light. And what once seemed like your ruin is now the very place God has chosen to reveal His glory. You didn't have to expose them. You didn't have to defend yourself. You didn't have to make anything happen. All you had to do was stand still and let God be God. He saw every detail. He kept every tear. And now, in His time, He has answered. in a way that no one can argue with.